Welcome to the Fancy Thinker. I'm Jared Quartermanch, and today I want to start a new segment called Lost Not Forgotten. Just talking about books that are lost to time, but I have not forgotten about them. So, what I want to start with this segment is actually two collections of short novels that came out 25 years ago or so. So, they are called, let me see here, Legends, edited by Robert Silverberg. And these were, legends of the field and fantasy that he got together and got this collection of short novels into this one huge, massive book here. Uh, so I want to go through these and give you a little overview of who is writing in this Legends anthology and what I thought about them and how they may have affected my reading habits going forward to today, right? And so, the first story in here is by Stephen King. We all know Stephen King. The Dark Tower, The Little Sisters of Illyria. At the time I read this, I was not familiar with the Dark Tower. And so, um, it was all new to me. I remember enjoying this story a lot. I thought it was really cool. It kind of had that almost a Western feel to it, but fantasy application. So I thought that was pretty cool. I never actually graduated to the actual series in prose. I did pick up the graphic novels as soon as they came out by Marvel Comic because they had a spectacular artist on there, and so I had to check those out. I enjoyed the graphic novels quite a bit actually. I thought they were very well done, and so I am still contemplating getting into the actual prose Dark Tower series um, in the future. So the next one in here is Discworld, The Sea and Little Fishes by Terry Pratchett. We all know Terry Pratchett, famous author of the Discworld series. I did not know about Discworld at the time that this came out, and I honestly don't remember much about this story at all. At the time, I wasn't a big aficionado of comedy in fantasy. Today, my horizons have been broadened much more. I have read Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and I really enjoyed that a lot. So I do want to get into some Discworld novels. I've heard a lot of good things about them. Next in here was The Sword of Truth, Debt of Bones by Terry Goodkind. Um, that had no impression on me whatsoever. I don't remember it. It didn't grab me. Don't remember liking it at all. So I have no need to go further into that kind of that world there. Um, After that was Tales of Alvin Maker, Grinning Man by Orson Scott Card. Orson Scott Card is famous for the Ender's Game series, and the Tales of Alvin Maker. I thought this story was an interesting concept. It was like a alternate history, Civil War type thing, and so I liked the story he wrote there, and I was like, oh, maybe. I never got into the novel series though. I did um, get the graphic novel version of the novel series of that, and it was okay. So I don't see myself, you know, pursuing that anytime soon. Next was Majapur, The Seventh Shrine by Robert Silverberg. This is the same kind of deal. It was okay, the story. I had no interest in pursuing any further writing in that series. I did get the graphic novel version, and it was okay. You know. So next up, we have Earthsea, Dragonfly by Ursula K. Le Guin, famous writer of fantasy, the Earthsea series. Um, I read The Wizard of Earthsea. I love that book. That was pretty good. And I also just recently picked up the next two books in the Earthsea trilogy. So I definitely plan to go on with her writing. And I remember liking this story too. She's a very good writer. Then we had Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, The Burning Man by Tad Williams. I remember liking the story okay. It didn't like jump out at me as like the greatest ever. Um, and that's all I've ever read by Tad Williams. I haven't delved into his other writing. I know he's getting a lot of reading and a lot of good press right now on BookTube with some people reading him. So, and I saw an interview with him, and he seems like a great guy. So, you know, that definitely piqued my interest in getting into his stuff later on. So maybe someday, right? The next in here was A Song of Ice and Fire, The Hedge Knight by George Martin. I love that story. I read it. I've read it again actually in another format, and I actually read it again in graphic novel format. I thought it was great. Egg and Dunkin' Egg, right? Uh, really good. We all know Martin. Um, and I've read all of his all of the Song of Ice and Fire. All right. Next is Pern, Runner of Pern by Ian McCaffrey. I really liked this story. It was really good. I've read, I think, three or four of the first Pern novels way back when. I thought those were really cool, and I enjoyed this story as well. Um, the Rift War Saga, The Wood Boy by Raymond E. Feist. I thought that was a pretty cool story. I liked it a lot. Um, I had always planned to get around to reading Feist or Feist. Yeah. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But I have not yet, so that's something hopefully I can correct in the future. Then we have The Wheel of Time, New Spring by Robert Jordan. I remember really liking that. I was big into The Wheel of Time at the time this came out. It was probably the reason I picked up this collection. And so, yeah, that was a winner for me in Legends collection. Then they came out with Legends 2. Robert Silverberg did. He's the editor of these collections, and this one came out a little later. Let's see here, 2004. So I think 6 years later than uh, than the original, right? So here in Legends 2, a bit smaller of a collection, but still some goodies in here. The first story in here is Realm of the Elderlings, Homecoming by Robin Hobb. We all know who that is now, right? Um, honestly, at the time, I really just don't remember this story at all, so it didn't have a huge impact on me. It the I am reading Assassin's Apprentice right now. If you have been following this channel, you know I'm reading it along with the comic book adaptation, and I am enjoying it a lot. And so I really like Assassin's Apprentice, which makes me want to go back to this story at some point because I have a feeling it'll have a bigger impact on me now. Um, all right, so the next story in here is another A Song of Ice and Fire story, The Sworn Sword by Martin. It's a follow up to his previous The Hedge Knight, and I loved it again. And once again, I've actually read this twice. I read it in another format, and I also read the graphic novel adaptation of that. Good stuff. Next in here is another The Tales of Alvin Maker story, The Yazoo Queen by Orson Scott Card. Um, once again, it was good. It was done well. Interesting stuff, but not interesting enough to make me go after the stories. Um, the next story in here is Outlander, Lord John and the Succubus by Diana Gabaldon. And I remember really liking this story. I thought it's very interesting. It's more historical fiction than it is fantasy. Um, I think, from what I remember, I could be wrong, but it's an Outlander story, so yeah, I think it is. And the this actually made me want to pick up the Outlander novel, but I didn't do it until after the series started on Stars Television here, and I liked the series. I watched that. It's pretty good. It's pretty well done, and so I read the novel, the first Outlander novel, and it didn't really do it for me. I uh, I like some of it, but some of it I didn't. It was okay. I like this story a little better, I think, than the first novel. So we'll see how my reading journey goes with that. Next was Madripoor, The Book of Changes by Robert Silverberg. I don't really remember much from that. It didn't have that huge of an impact on me. Um, Next one after that is Otherland, The Happiest Dead Boy in the World by Tad Williams. Once again, not a huge impact on me. Something I may have to revisit in the future. And then we had Pern, Beyond Between. I remember really liking that one. That was a pretty cool short novel by Anne McCaffrey. Once again, I've read her stuff in the past, and I really like that one. Then we had The Riff War, The Messenger by Raymond E. Feasts, sorry. Uh, and I remember that being a pretty cool story. And once again, I plan to correct my error of not picking up his books in the future. Then we had The Symphony of Ages, Threshold by Elizabeth Hayden. And I remember it. I actually kind of liked this story. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'll have to pick her up in the future. Never did. There's a lot of stuff to read out there, so you kind of forget about these things. So once again, maybe we'll have to revisit Elizabeth Hayden in the future. And then after that was American Gods, The Monarch of the Glen by Neil Gaiman. I really loved this story. It was cool. It fit into the American Gods mythos that Gaiman had started with the American Gods novel, which I really loved. And so I'm a Gaiman fan anyways. I read a lot of his stuff. And yeah, this one was right up my alley. And the final story in here was Shannara, Indomitable by Terry Brooks. And it was okay. Um, I had already kind of Terry Brooks myself out in the past. I read too much of that stuff a long time ago, and I think I kind of got sick of that world. But if you like Shannara stories, then you probably would like that. It was Shannara. It was good for for what it is, and that is the end of Legends 2. That covers that whole second anthology. So those were the books that nobody ever talks about, that kind of lost but not forgotten by me in the past. So if you think I should continue on with this series, if I do, I'll be doing more traditional novels, um, and we'll talk about those. If you do, let me know in the comments below, and like and subscribe, and be good to each other. Thank you.